All right. What's going on, guys? My name's Jake. I'm here with my cousin Tony, who's probably been one of my biggest idols growing up, for sure. Has had probably the most influence on my life. I figured we could just start with maybe your origin story, what your childhood was like, where you were born, stuff like that. So,
where to start?
I know.
I'm from Edina, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. The cake eaters, surrounding cities call us cake eaters because apparently back in our dad's time, it was, an affluent area to live in, and everybody has money now apparently around here. So, but it's a term that just stuck with our city, and so my family wasn't exactly wealthy, but we were middle class, and so I grew up in Edina, had a great childhood. I talk about that often, that I would not trade my childhood with anybody's. Not everything was perfect, but we were latchkey kids, so we got to run around and just kind of do whatever we wanted to do, within reason. And, we just got to hang out, be out as late as we wanted to. And it was just a good deal.
That's so funny. I just heard the term latchkey kid.
Yeah.
In another podcast, and I was like, what the fuck is a latchkey kid?
Just a free kid.
Yeah. Just roams the streets.
Yeah.
Who was like your biggest childhood hero growing up? So you have a twin.
Yeah, I do. I have a twin brother. So I have a twin brother, fraternal, Matt. And then I have a younger brother, Gary. He's 2 years younger than. We have an older brother, a half brother, Jonathan, who's 9 years older. And my hero growing up, I don't know if I ever really, my heroes weren't like real people. I always I liked escaping into like imagination and fantasy, and so I looked up to like comic book heroes or like, cartoon characters. I always just wanted, there was never really anybody I met in my life that I wanted to be, really, but I mean, as I got older, my older brother became somebody that I idolized because of the things that he had overcome in his life.
Right.
And just kind of the man that he became. And, that's not to say that there's, he offers everything that I want, but, I think there's something about him that I do appreciate and do look up to and idolize, and just the transition that he's made in his life. So if there's somebody I guess that I looked up to, it would be him.
Yeah.
What
you mentioned comic books or comics and cartoons and stuff. Who were like your favorites?
It's funny because I was just talking to my brother the other day. So Remy LeBeau Gambit was always like my favorite cartoon character growing up watching the X-Men show, and that's only because I thought he was like so cool, and I had a crush on Rogue, and so I was like, oh, that's his girlfriend. And like I always thought he was cool and had a cool name, and he was like a Cajun and a thief and all these things. But I've since watched that show as an adult, and Gambit is a moron. He's really dumb, and they make him very
cocky,
he's not great. But as a kid, I don't know, I thought he was awesome.
I mean, in the video games, he was like, his cards would glow pink, and it, he wore that cool trench coat, and he always looked badass.
Yeah, he was great.
What were like the toughest things growing up for you? Like, are there anything that you had to deal with that, looking back, you wish like, oh man, if I would have just done this and this, it would have made life so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, so my parents got divorced when I was like 10. That was difficult. I didn't realize until, I'm going to send Remy to the ground. I don't mean to like,
I don't care.
Remy, get on, please. He's going to be awkward. So he, can I put him in my room? Is that
Sure.
going to be weird? Here, sorry, I don't mean
God damn it, Remy.
Fucking this whole episode up. So as my parents got divorced when I was like 10, and I didn't realize until I was an adult, because I don't have like a lot of memories of my parents being together. You know, I have like, frames, and I always remember them like going on vacation or a trip without us. We were always left with like babysitters, and that was just kind of it. And I remember them fighting a lot. So because my memories, I don't have that many, excuse me. I thought my parents got divorced when I was like 4. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I must have been like super young when my parents got divorced. And then I was like, oh, like I was 10, like maybe I've got like trauma or something. But anyways, so my parents got divorced, and that was difficult. Definitely growing up, because my parents, they just didn't do a great job of handling the divorce that they could have. And what I mean by that is they let us as children know too much of the inner workings of their relationship, and like meaning like gossip and insults and just stuff that we as kids, finances, like stuff as kids that we shouldn't have been concerning ourselves with. And
did you ever have like when you're with your dad, he would be like, God, if your mom just wouldn't, child support, or if she's crazy, she's wanting me to do this and this, and
absolutely,
and then your mom would be like, God, your deadbeat dad, he fucking did this and this, and and kind of like pin 100%. You guys against each other.
100%. Yeah. They would constantly say negative things about each other. Just rude things. And it was always, there's a comment that my older brother made to me once that really stuck with me, and I didn't really, it kind of put things in perspective. And he told me that on the nights that we would go with our dad, me and my brothers, and we go like every Friday night and every other Wednesday or something. But anyways, whenever we would come home, we'd be different. And different, not in a good way. We'd be fighting with each other or arguing or just, like brat. It's just, we weren't good, but we didn't leave that way. It was something that affected us while we were there. And we brought that home with us back to my mom's place. And
yeah, I feel like the energy between a mom and dad that are going through issues, it manifests its way into like kids' moods and personalities. And it kind of, I heard one time, like kids are kind of like from ages 0 to like 10. Yeah. It's like a memory card. Yeah. So like once you fill that memory card up, that's like their basis for how they live the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. So it's like stuff that, going through trauma and stuff. That's why it's so hard later in life to deal with stuff that's just completely ingrained in your like memory card.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that 100%, and it's not, I don't really as an adult blame them, for what, how they behaved and what they did. I think that they came from such a different generation, I feel like, things change so much with time and, with like the internet and everything and the way that people communicate with each other now, obviously there's still like a lot of negativity out there and stuff like that, but people are aware of trauma, and mental health is a big deal now that isn't like a negative thing to talk about. And it's just there's so many tools available now to people to not make the mistakes that our parents made.
Right. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more ways, like tools to cope with stuff that you had to deal with as a child. So I don't know, how deep do you want to get?
You can get as deep as you want.
Okay, so I remember, growing up, you were like my hero. You were someone who's like, you were like good looking. You had a cool style. You listened to all the cool music.
But you were also an only child.
Right.
Like, so you didn't have like...
Right, I didn't have an older brother.
Yeah.
But my mom was gone a lot flying because she was a flight attendant. So I got, to hang out with, you guys and Joey and, you know, all my cousins.
Yeah.
But, you know, I took a little bit from a lot of people in how I was supposed to act and look and, you know, whatever. But I feel like I took the most from you. Like your, you know, like I said, music and your style and sense of humor and stuff like that.
God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I turned out horrible.
I'm kidding.
No, so I remember because you were living with us at one point in Edina, which was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, to have like an older, like what felt like a sibling.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to like dive into this lightly, but so you've dealt with drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. When did that start?
So, I mean,
because I'll preface this because I remember specifically one time you didn't like sit me down, but you're like, dude, weed is so dumb. You do not want to smoke weed. It's for losers.
Really?
Yeah. I remember
specifically at all.
Yeah.
Was it when I was living with you?
No, this was like way before that. Like,
was it before I started smoking weed?
Probably.
Oh,
but you were like, it's so dumb, and I was like, cool, yeah, not doing that.
Yeah.
And then
I was high every day.
Yeah. And then you know, one time you were like, I don't know how it got brought up, but you're like, yeah, I smoke weed or something like that. And I was like, okay, so weed is cool. Mm-hmm. And then, you know,
I mean, that just says a lot about just how, you know, impressionable people are.
Oh, totally.
And how people aren't careful about how they could be, you know, potentially changing somebody's life with just a simple like sentence.
Well, and if it wasn't you, it'd be someone else. I was always wanting to be like cool. Yeah, I always wanted the validation of, you know, as an only child, it's like, how do I fit in? How can I be the cool guy, I guess? But anyway, so when did it start for you? When do you think you started down that road?
You know, so, you know, I mentioned like my parents divorced and stuff. And so a big deal for me in childhood was, like I was saying, like my imagination. Like I loved, like, I'd always say like, let's play pretend. Like that was always something I would say, like, you guys want to play pretend? And it was
like wrestling.
Yeah, it could be like that, or we just like make up like, you know, I played a lot of video games and I still do. And Wolfenstein was something I played all the time. So like Nazis were always the enemy. So, you know, we get Nerf guns and pretend there's Nazis invading and we'd have to like run around. So I liked, you know, escaping my reality. Yeah. You know, I didn't like, I always had anxiety, you know, and I always felt uncomfortable in my skin. I hate being uncomfortable.
Where did that stem from?
Oh, I'm sure just childhood, like, you know, you know, not to keep saying like my parents divorced, but you know, that was like I feel like a turning point in my reality, you know, like it's when I started wetting the bed again.
Oh, I was a huge bedwetter.
So, you know, I had to wear pull-ups and that was very like shameful. You know, I go to friends' houses and, you know, wet the bed, you know, it's just like, it was embarrassing, you know, but like, again, like nobody talked to me. Nobody was like, hey, that's okay. Like, you know, you're going through something, or like, what are you going through? Or like, talk to me, like, how do you feel? You know, it's just like, you know, it's just, I was left to, you know, anyways, but
sorry, another follow-up. What were you anxious about?
I don't know. I mean, I was a kid.
You had that feeling of anxiety.
I just like, you know, all of a sudden started wetting the bed and I didn't know why, you know, but you know, so you're so young as a kid that you don't like put things in perspective. You don't think about like the future or consequences or that type of stuff. You just kind of live in the moment.
So were you not wetting the bed and then you started?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so with that all being said, like I liked escaping reality, and as I got older, you know, it was hanging out with friends and you know, chasing girls or doing this and that, and all that became really important to me. And you know, I too always wanted to just be cool. I always wanted to be with the cool kids. Yeah. And you know, be popular or whatever. And you know, it just got to a point where, you know, I think it was 11th grade. And up until that point, you know, I had a lot of friends, but I noticed that a lot of my friends were smoking weed, and I was still very much against it. And then I decided, the first time I smoked, I remember I was in my buddy's basement. We were playing some emulator, like Nintendo emulator on his computer, and it was some baseball game. And if you hit a home run, my buddy said that Mr. T, your character walks through the lineup and high fives everybody, and the last person in the lineup is Mr. T. And I thought he was just like high or making that up or whatever. And I was like, if you're right, I'll smoke weed.
A random ultimatum.
And he was right. And Mr. T was the last guy in the lineup. I have no idea why. And
so deep down, did you know you wanted
Yeah,
to,
totally. I think I was like setting myself up to like smoke weed. And so I smoked weed, and I don't think I felt it or anything like that. I probably pretended that I did, but I don't remember getting high. And I remember, because I had already broken down that wall that first time smoking, it wasn't as scary to smoke again. And I wanted to do it again because I was like, well, if that's high, like I can handle that. And then when I got high the second time, I was gone.
Yeah.
I was
like scared.
No, but I was like, I had such a good time. I was, giggling with my friends and everything was funny. And I remember we got Taco Bell and it tasted awesome. And we had Mountain Dew Code Red and that tasted awesome.
The first time I got high was with you and someone else, I think. Mm-hmm. And we went to Jerry's Foods and got Mountain Dew Code Red, and it was like
amazing. I probably had that in my mind. I was like, you got to try Mountain Dew Code Red.
Yes, that's what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, and which is just delicious whether you're high or not.
True. You're not wrong.
Yeah, so I, and it was just, that was the turning point. I liked that feeling because it helped me. It was just, I always wanted life to be more than it was. I always wanted things to be special. I always hated feeling bored, or like I wasn't doing something, and that gave me, an outlet to just escape my life and make it interesting. And, I befriended the stoners at school because they always were smoking and always had pot. And I became friends with one of the dealers at my school. And
what's his name? Shout him out. I'm just kidding.
and we became really good friends, and we hung out every day. And, he would just smoke me up every day. And it just changed my life. That's, it's what I woke up and smoked all day. I was never not high 11th through 12th grade. It was just became my identity, and my group of friends changed. And, I had, my friends that I've known since I was in like second grade. I wasn't friends with them anymore. And the friends that I had, they weren't really friends. They was just people I could smoke weed with, and they had girls that hung around, and I wanted to hang around girls. And, how everything else started, I would occasionally find other drugs, whether it be, I don't want to say mushrooms, but, I dove into mushrooms a little bit. And
mushrooms are fun.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a good time on them.
No?
No, I hated them. I thought it was a nightmare.
Okay.
I tried cocaine, and that was okay, but I was always drunk when I did it. And alcohol was fun, but it was, I was always a blackout drinker. So, as soon as I had the first drink, I wanted 1,000. And, and then I got into opiates. I liked pills. I liked the way that opiates made me feel.
Warm, cozy blanket.
Yeah, like I just, like nothing mattered. I just felt secure. Like I wasn't, holding my breath anymore. I wasn't, I didn't have panic attack. I just felt safe, and everything seemed, I don't know. It was just the way that feeling of euphoria that it gave me. It was something that I wanted to hold on to. I felt like that's what I was always looking for.
I always described opiates as like, reality feels so jagged and sharp and edgy and like staticky. And then when you take like an oxy or something, it just becomes warm and round and smooth.
It's just like, oh, this is what life's supposed to feel like.
For sure.
This is how I'm supposed to feel. This is probably what everybody feels like, and this is how I have to access that feeling.
Totally.
And it almost ruined my life. It was like, it became, I mean, I don't know if you want this whole podcast to be about drugs, but it's, when I was living so I moved to California in 2008.
What sparked that?
I remember as a kid, I used to like having them, and probably because I watched like Saved by the Bell all the time, and they lived in California, and I was like obsessed.
LA.
Yeah, I was like obsessed with thinking that was it, and just something always drew me to LA as a kid, and I think I just had that in my subconscious, and just I was in my early 20s, and I just wanted to something different. I didn't want to live in Minnesota my whole life, and never experience something else. And as the timing just worked out, where I didn't have any responsibilities really here, and I had a friend out there, and my mom lived out there at the time, and it was just an easy transition. So we moved out there, and I would smoke weed out there. I would take breaks, and I would drink, and I would take breaks, and but I remember I would always come across pills, painkillers, probably subconscious like seeking behavior, and I would get them, and I loved that and how they made me feel, but it wasn't always accessible. And, early on, if I didn't have it, it wasn't a big deal. It was just like, okay, well, I just don't have it. Like, I didn't think about it. And then one day, this cook at a restaurant who I knew because I worked at a restaurant next to him, and one of my roommates at the time worked at his restaurant, he knew that I liked him. And he had hurt his back or something like that. And so he got a script. And this is like, early 2010s. So the time opiate crisis wasn't, I don't think, in like full effect. And so doctors were still kind of just writing them willy-nilly to anybody that, had a headache. And and he was like, I have the script and I don't use them. I don't even know what they sell for. Do you want to buy them? And God. I was like, yeah, and I never bought them before. So I was like, yeah, I'll give you, probably I gave him like $60 for 60 pills or something, And
I think, when I was buying them, it was like $1 a milligram sometimes.
That's what it ended up becoming. Yeah, for sure. I was paying like $10 a pill.
Yeah.
But so we had this relationship where I would, he'd get a script and I'd drive an hour out there to go pick him up and, drive back. And I just didn't even realize like how everything was unfolding. I was becoming physically addicted. And I would notice when.
All right. I think we're good.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I just didn't even realize how everything was unfolding, and I was becoming physically addicted, and I would find myself when he didn't have a script yet or whatever, I was, I wasn't really feeling physical withdrawals, but I was kind of, but it was more that mentality where I really had to find it and get it. And I would like lie to people, people I didn't even ever talk to as a friend. And, hey, I have a buddy in town that likes pills. Anybody, it's just like weird lies. And it didn't seem weird to me at the time. And eventually one day a friend put me in touch with a dude who lived, I lived in Long Beach at the time, and he lived in San Pedro, which is right across the bridge. And this kid himself knew multiple dealers, and he was also addicted. So it benefited him for me to pick up because he would get like kickbacks.
Yeah. And keep going.
And him and I just built a relationship. We were talking every day, all day, and I was working. I had a career at this time, or I was just starting my career as a graphic designer, and I was also working at a restaurant 6 days a week, and I was making thousands of dollars a week and spending it all on pills, and it got to a point where if I ran out, I was dying. I felt like I was dying.
Right.
Like I was, dripping sweat, and I was freezing and burning up, and I couldn't sleep, and my legs would
Restless
twitch,
legs.
and I was just like, diarrhea. It's just all this, just all the physical withdrawal symptoms. And, but it didn't make me want to stop. I just wanted to feel normal. It got to a point where I wasn't getting high anymore, really. I was just feeling normal. And, some people, I've talked to people that have tried opiates before, and they say, they make him feel tired, or they make and for me, opiates gave me energy. It
Totally.
made me feel like I could do anything.
Yes.
And I was successful at my career on them, and I had the energy to work at night as a server, and
It got rid of that exhausting anxiety. That
yeah, it's just
always
like
had
never tired.
Yeah.
I was just always gone. And
You never got the nod?
yeah. Well,
You took too much?
so eventually, the pills dried up because doctors stopped prescribing them, and I liked Oxycontins, the blues, because they got me higher and they were more potent, and I started taking these blues. The kid that I was buying from knew a guy that always got blues, and I was like, awesome, like we never have to worry about all the whites or whatever again, but I had this habit when I would put a pill in my mouth, didn't matter what it was, I would bite it because I wanted it to work faster.
Right.
And when I bit into these pills, they would just like chalk. They just like, it didn't have that coat that would like snap. And I was like, they're weird. They're different. They feel fake. And I bought fake pills before, and they didn't get me high. They were just bunk chalk or something.
Yeah.
And I told them, but I was getting high. So I was like, they're not fake.
What if they're fentanyl?
Yeah. So I went to a detox for the first time, and they're like, the only thing showing up in your system is fentanyl. And I was like, oh. And so I got,
Sweet.
yeah, so I went through detox, left after like 4 days, against doctor recommendation. And when I got out, all I wanted was fentanyl.
Right.
I was like, I remember there was a couple times when, I was taking fentanyl for months, and I would not be able to get those. And I was actually able to get, other pills, hydrocodone, whatever, and they wouldn't do anything. I would take,
It's that potent.
Yeah, for the first time I tried to get sober in 2017 before fentanyl, when I was just taking like hydros and stuff, I was taking like 30 pills a day. I would take them like 4 at a time. And
like what, milligrams?
Yeah, they were 10.
10. Wow.
Yeah, so I was, taking a lot. And when I detoxed from that, it was a nightmare. But when I got into fentanyl, and I would occasionally find those, and I would take those, and they didn't do anything. Like they wouldn't even get me high. I would have to take so many, and obviously that's not good for you, for your kidney or whatever. And
crazy.
But life was just bad. It was taking everything from me. It took my relationships, it took my finances, it took my almost everything. And thankfully, I held on to my job, and I ended up getting sober.
When was that?
Last March.
Okay.
Yeah, off of everything. And it's just, I'm in AA now. I'm a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go to meetings and, do all the things that are recommended and suggested to not only get sober, but stay sober. And in my experience, it's much more pleasant to try to stay sober than it is to get sober. And
Totally.
Yeah, it's just a good deal now. So
when I went through detox twice, and I remember both times, you go through that honeymoon phase of like, this is awesome. I'm so passionate about this. You go into recovery and treatment, whatever. And it's like that first year is just like, man, I'm in it. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. It's like a relationship, like where the first year or two, it's like, wow, this is awesome. What, like, I'm doing well. Everything's working out okay. You were sober before. You tried to get sober before, right? You said in 2017.
Yeah,
How long did that last?
like 30 days.
Okay. So now, is this the longest stint?
Easily.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, there's a difference. When I got sober in 2017, I wasn't doing the program as suggested.
Right.
I went to meetings sometimes. Didn't do any book work. I didn't do any of the things that are suggested to hold on to that sobriety. And I took it for granted, my sobriety, and I didn't have any tools to battle the things that would make me want to get high, make me want to escape. And I convinced myself that I could just be a pothead, and that didn't work.
I remember that when you came back briefly and we went frisbee golfing.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that time, that was in 2019, and so that was, I did go to detox, and I did get off of pills, and in that time I was like, I was like, I'm only gonna be a pothead. That's only what I'm gonna do.
I've tried that somewhere.
And it worked for like 6 months. I was like getting hot, but I was like a maniac. I was eating edibles all day, every day. I was getting high. I was at the dispensary I was just doing the same thing. It was just a different substance.
Right.
I always had to be high.
Yep. I remember when, we were going frisbee golfing and we had you had a vape pen or something. I had a vape pen, something like that. And I thought you were like completely sober, and you're like, no, I can smoke weed. I'm, whatever. Yeah. And I was like, deep down, I didn't tell you this because I was like, who am I to, because it works for some people, like awesome. But deep down, I was like, it's not, I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I was worried. I was like, red flag.
I'm sure a lot of people felt that way. That I told that I was done with, that knew I had a problem with pills, and knew that I was smoking weed. All knew probably deep down that it wasn't a good idea. And
it wasn't the drug. It's just you.
Yeah, it's me. It's the problem isn't drugs. The problem isn't alcohol. The problem is me. The problem is I have this thing where as soon as I take, in AA, they call it, allergy of the body and an obsession of the mind. Mm. So as soon as I take whatever, whether it be weed or alcohol, I'm allergic to my body. So I become different, in this obsession where I need more and more, and I'm no longer in control, and that's how it is, and I don't run around telling people to get into AA and do AA. Like, I just know for me, I've tried getting sober a number of ways on my own, and I, don't think I'm a dumb guy, and I don't think that I don't have, conviction when I say I'm going to do something or mean it. It's just that that's just one thing that I don't have a natural defense against. I need a program that I can work. And, this is something for me, like AA for me isn't like a sentence. It's not something that like, oh fuck, I guess for the rest of my life I have to do AA. It's like it's a spiritual journey for me. Like I know that might sound corny to some people, but it's like, it's a program that is going to be different to me at different parts of my life. Right. Like I'm still early in my sobriety, so it means something different to me, but it'll get to a point where I get to pass this along, where I get to help other people get sober. And ultimately for me, that's what the biggest change has been. When I say that, my obsession as a kid was always to get out of my mind and escape, and, what helps me do that today is just like service work. Just like being of service to other people is the biggest thing I can do. And that gives me the feeling that I was always seeking as a child, because I get to help somebody, just acts of service, right. And it doesn't have to always be like, something physical. It can just be a conversation. Like sitting here doing this podcast with you is something for you. Like, it's not for me. Yeah. Well,
I do.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome, but
podcasts
it's like,
are uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, they can, but yeah, I don't know. So just life's different now,
Yeah. So you've gone through that journey, or are still going through that journey.
Yeah.
And now you have been a graphic designer.
Yeah.
You've always had like that artistic, that artist in you. I feel like I remember ever since we were young,
mm-hmm.
You always knew how to draw.
Mm-hmm.
You were always really good at it. Where do you see yourself in like 5 or 10 years? Like, what are your goals? I mean, obviously still staying sober and doing the thing, but...
Yeah. I mean, so I'm at a good company now, a company that I'm beyond grateful to work for and blessed to have employment for. And, I'm going to stay with this company until they do not need me anymore, which is hopefully never. So I'm in a good place there. I mean, in my life, I just moved back to Minnesota. I'm still trying to figure out, what I want to do here and my future goals and stuff. But, there's still a lot of wreckage from my time of using, drugs that I need to, that are my initial focus, meaning like get my finances back in order. And, I still have to make some amends to people and I need to still do some cleanup work, which is kind of my immediate goals. And my long-term goals would be start a family. I want to meet somebody and, I'm such a different person now than I was obviously during my youth, but even before, I was just like never a good boyfriend. I treated it the same way that I treat, drugs or anything. Like, it's how you make me feel, and as soon as you stop making me feel good, I'm over it,
Right.
and that's no problem of anybody that I've ever dated. Like, it's not anything that they did. It was always me, like I would always, every relationship that I've been in has gone through the same like stages. And I've ultimately, in the end, sabotaged my relationships.
I can relate totally. At least for me, the older me, it was like always wanting validation from women. And then when I'd get it and say I'd like start dating them or be with them, then it's like that would kind of wear off. Like, I'm kind of okay. What on to the next thing? What else? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just selfish behavior.
Totally.
It's just like, what can you do for me?
And then when it, it's so funny because then when I would sabotage it or like I would cheat or something, it's like the worst.
Yeah.
I feel horrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would I ever do that? And then the cycle repeats when it's like, man,
Yeah.
I just keep shooting myself in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate 100%.
Fucking women.
It makes me nervous to get into a relationship because I don't know if I've done enough work on myself to like really, because I don't want to hurt anybody again,
Right.
but I can't like
or
not,
yourself.
Yeah, but I can't not risk getting into a relationship just because I don't want to like feel bad things. But
Yeah.
I have been meaning to get a therapist just to do like, some further work. And, I just am in a good place right now where I'm single and, I have just moved here and, I'm still trying to like, I'm not trying to rush anything. And I just want to kind of, establish who I am right now and here and just take my time. I mean, that's another thing that I had a lesson I had to teach myself, when something I consistently have to remind myself is to not future trip. Like, I don't have to worry about like, well, what am I going to be doing in 5 years? Well, am I meeting that goal? Like what am I going to, like, what's this podcast going to be like, or what, everything's just going to be the way that it's going to be. I don't have to worry and always prepare myself for an experience.
Well, and as someone who also loves drugs, for me, I wasn't ever worried about, if I was ever thoughtful and mindful enough to be like, oh, in 5 years, what I'm doing now isn't going to get me to where I want to be.
Right.
It was always like, I want to feel good right now today and worry about tomorrow's Jake tomorrow.
I mean, that's why when I stopped using drugs, I was still like a teenager.
Oh.
When I got sober, I'm like, fuck, I didn't grow up at all in the last 10 plus years.
Right.
It's just, I'm still like, so I'm growing up to do, and it's just, I always say like my drug and alcohol experience was just time traveling. It's just like I stayed the same and just life moved forward.
For sure.
Time just marches on with or without you. And, I was just in the same place. And so, I just have work to do, and which is fine. I don't trip about it. I don't trip about like, oh, I have to do this. I just take it one moment at a time. It's just like, where am I at right now? I try to stay out of the past and out of the future. Just like, what am I doing right now?
I had a friend in recovery years ago, and she would never get in a relationship. She had been in recovery like years before me and is still in recovery. I don't know how she's doing now. I haven't really kept in contact, but she was always like, I'm not ready for a relationship.
Yeah.
For like years. And it's like, well, are you ever going to be ready? I'm not talking about like me and her being in a relationship, but we were just friends, and like she would mention like, you know, me and this guy are seeing each other, but I don't know. I'm just not ready. I don't want to like screw anything up. And it's like, I don't know. It's sometimes you just have to risk it.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds bad, especially if you're early in recovery, but you know, just if it happens naturally and it feels nice, and you maybe talk to your sponsor. And
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying is like, you don't force anything,
right?
You know, like don't try to make, you shouldn't try to make things happen, but like you shouldn't try to like focus focus so much on guiding everything, right. You know, like, you know, that's my biggest fear, you know, that will sometimes guide my life is, you know, the unknown, or maybe I'll do that and I'll feel uncomfortable, or what if we do this and I feel bad, or, you know, I'm always so worried about being uncomfortable or feeling shitty that I'll just not do anything.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, but then I'm not living, then I'm not growing. You know, if you grow the most from bad experiences,
totally.
You know, if nothing bad ever happens to you, then you're fucking, you know what, I don't know, you're not growing, definitely. You know,
that's kind of like the motto in the office at the broker I work at. It's like, if you don't have problems and you're not needing to put out fires, you're not really doing anything.
Yeah, you're not doing work.
Yeah.
You know, like my dad is always such a critical guy, and you know, one bad thing you do in your childhood will define you in his eyes for the rest of your life. And so I was always so self-conscious about, you know, so if I like make a mistake, well, I need to make sure that I pay for that, whether it's, you know, somebody else realizing that I suck, or I need to just remember that I suck. You know, like, oh yeah, everything's going great now, but remember when you took out your mom's car and crashed it into an old lady's car, and then
I forgot you did that.
You know, like,
you know,
piece of
shit.
But it's like, oh yeah, I did do that. So I'm not a good guy, you know, like, so it's like,
that's why I brought you on, actually.
Yeah. So I'll like remember things that I did that were mistakes or bad, and be like, oh, see, you don't deserve any of this. You know, you're not, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's, but you know, that's stuff I can work through, and stuff that I can get better at. And, you know, it's just all perspective, you know, putting things in a different perspective. And
do you, kind of going back to when I first got high and you were smoking weed in high school, do you remember picking me up in your mom's white Escalade?
Yeah, I played, we got high and I played, it was snowy, it was winter, and I played Flesh by Atmosphere on God Loves Ugly, and you threw up.
Scared. I remember specifically, I think I said like, pull over.
Yeah.
Everything got so real and vivid.
Yeah, it sounds
like,
awesome.
It was, no.
Yeah.
And so you're like, what? And you like pulled over, and I got out and just got in the snow, like to feel, I don't even know. But it was like to trick myself into not having a panic attack.
Yeah, sure.
It was like, and then it's so fun. I bring that up because it was one of the scariest moments in my life. And also that I wanted to be so cool and get the approval of everybody around me that I just kept smoking weed.
Yeah.
It's like the self-sabotage of clearly my body and my mind were just telling me like,
bad idea.
Don't do this ever again.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I mean, if I look in retrospect, my life was just chock full of red flags.
Yeah, totally.
Like, dude, like, this isn't for you. Don't do this.
Yeah.
And I just, fuck it. Like, I'll deal with it later.
Do you feel, at least for me, you know, when I'm going through life and I'm doing the right things, like my dad was, you know, before he passed, he was always like, just do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really hit me until like years later after he had passed. And it's like, you feel that in your stomach. It's like, oh, okay, obviously that's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And this is, even though I want to do this.
Yeah.
Do you let that guide you today when you're like making decisions? Do you go with like intuition and that like you feel like, okay, this obviously isn't or do you kind of, how do you?
Well, I think like my motivations have changed so much since I got sober. You know, my motivations, you know, previous to me getting sober and previous to, you know, me even using anything, just as a kid and stuff. My motivations were always selfish, so I always was, it didn't matter if I hurt your feelings. Like I wanted to get what I wanted to get, I wanted, whether it was a laugh or, approval or this and that. If there was destruction happening, I didn't care, I just wanted to get mine.
Right.
But I don't operate like that today. So like my motivations are never really, not that they can't be selfish sometimes, but like I don't look at things the way that I used to. So and I've always been empathetic, I can very easily take on the energy of the room or somebody, if somebody's, in a bad mood or something, like I can take that on, like,
I've always struggled
I don't
with that.
mean to, it's just like, I feel for you,
Yeah.
and so I just am a lot more conscious today about hurting people's feelings. And like I'll give you an example, like so my twin brother Matt, like we have like a history obviously, and as a kid and through high school and stuff, like I just was never nice to him. I wasn't, he was just, I was so insecure about not being cool that I thought that if there was anybody that might potentially affect how cool I could have been, I didn't want to deal with them, and for whatever reason in my head, I thought that he wasn't cool. Now I know he was cooler than I was. He was more grounded and had cool things. Like that's a regret I totally have had to learn to live with. But like that's a relationship I wish I would have started better when we were kids. Like we'd have had so much fun.
Right.
But and I've made amends to him. A couple times, but anyway, so we're good today, as good as we can be. But I know that he's had to learn to become a certain way because of how, and our dad bullied us. Our dad was always like picking on us and critiquing, criticizing, and never worried about your feelings. He liked getting under your skin and seeing you fucking, feel bad. Like he almost got off on it, and he still does today. So anyways, Matt's kind of built up, like, in my opinion, like this wall, like to protect himself. He, and so he doesn't, if there's ever a chance where anybody might be belittling him or like, being mean to him or anything, like his defenses are so quick to be, to make that person pay or let them know that's not okay. But like, and which is okay to do, and you should do, but you don't have to do it in a mean or in a brutal way. So anyways, we were taking Grandpa and Linda home a couple weeks ago from dinner at my mom's, and it's a long trip, and the Minnesota roads are icy and stuff. And we got out of the car, and they both can't walk very well, and he was taking Linda out of the car, and I was taking Grandpa out, helping them on the ice to get into their place. And there was a moment where Matt and Linda were kind of like frozen, and Matt wasn't moving and Linda wasn't moving. I think she was waiting for him to make a move. And, he was, anyways, instead of like, I saw an opportunity for Matt to like do something. And instead of saying like, which now I know I should have said like, Matt, there's actually like, you want to like move or like guide him. I made a comment because, and it was kind of snarky. Like, I was like, I don't know what I said, but I ended it with like, come on, guy, like, like something.
Get your shit together.
Yeah, kind of. But I know I didn't mean to say it in a mean way. And I'm careful about how I say things, especially to Matt, because I know that he can get mad at me easily. Or I can trigger that side of him. And anyways, he like shot me this look, this like glare, and I knew it was on. Like I knew he was mad, about that comment. And everything had been fine up to that, but like, anyways, we get into the car and I can just feel it. I can feel him like, and he's icing me out, and I can feel he's driving a little aggressive. And I throw him a couple softballs, like, "Hey, did you know the mom in Berenstain Bears is 27 years old?" And then he'd be like, "Nope." I'm like, okay, like,
really, that didn't lighten the mood?
Yeah, like,
that didn't work.
And so anyways, my instincts obviously are like, oh, I'm just going to ice them out back. Fuck it. You know, like,
Yeah.
you want to do this? I can do it too, type thing.
Let's
you know?
fucking go.
But I'm thinking in my head, and I'm thinking about where I want to be in my journey, and you know, the tools that I have now and all this. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do, you know, because like our moms don't talk to each other, like,
Right.
you know, and it's over petty shit,
Right.
you know, and it's, you know, this is your blood, like this is your family, and it might not mean something to you, and it might not mean something to him, and it might not mean something to anybody, but like, it means something to me, you know, like I want to have relationships with my family. Like I want to know you guys, and I want you guys to know me, like, and I want relationships, and I don't want them to be what they were. And so I just made, in a moment, I was like, can I ask you a question? And he was just like, what? You know, he's so mad. It's like, why do you ice me out when I do stuff like that? You know, tell me, say, dude, I didn't like that. I don't like when you talk to me like that. I can work with that.
You can work with that.
Yeah. I'm not going to get defensive and gaslight you and be like, well, no, it's because you're this, you know, or like, and maybe I will, but give me a chance, you know, like I don't want to hurt people's feelings. You know, I don't want you to feel shitty. I don't, like, you know, and yeah, I can tease people and I can, you know, but like ultimately I'm not really trying to hurt your feelings, you know, and if I do, give me a chance to apologize. But if you don't say anything and you ice me out, we don't grow from there. We don't, you know. Oh. Is that at the end?
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, you're saying like don't.
Well, so I just told him like, you know, just talk to me. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I try to do now. And I wish people in general did more, is just communication is key. You know, it's talking through things, you know, like talking, you know, letting people know what your boundaries are, letting people know what you'll stand for and what you want. And that doesn't mean like, you know, like if you say something that I don't like, I'm going to treat you worse. So then you'll remember that and you won't do it again. It just lets you know like, hey, I don't like that, you know? And then the same effect is being done, you know, like I still get the message, you know? And just because you're soft about it or kind about it doesn't mean that I think you're weak, or I don't see it as like, oh, if you're going to be like that, I'll do it again. Yeah. Like, you know, it's just like, you know, I don't know. So anyways,
I do that with Gene. I've noticed sometimes.
It's a very Midwestern thing to ice people
passive
out.
Aggressive.
Yeah,
like
it's very,
I'll just shut down, and I'll get even more mad when she's not like, when she doesn't ask what's wrong. It's like, dude, can't you see I'm being mad?
Yeah.
You need to ask me what's, it's like, or like she'll do the same to me. And it's like, I need to be better at communicating and just, but then it's like, but I have to be vulnerable. And then what if she uses that against me? And then what if it gets worse? If, you know, I'm the victim here.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah.
Cool. Well, I always, I mean, I guess not always, but the last 2 podcasts I've done, I always ask the guest how do they want to be remembered when they're gone?
I mean, that, you know, it's funny you asked that, because I was thinking about that like in the shower today, knowing that this podcast was coming, and not that you would ask that, but you know, I was thinking about my friends that say they don't want kids and stuff. And, you know, I was just thinking about, and I made like a joke to Matt the other day when we were walking, like we're such a blip in time, you know,
Totally.
And like so much has happened before us and so much will happen after us. And, you know, I don't know how I want to, if I don't necessarily want to be remembered by the masses, but that's why it's important for me to have good relationships with the people I love, because I want to at least be remembered for that, you know, for being remembered for making somebody laugh or feel good or this and that. You know, there's a quote, and I repeat it a lot. It's Maya Angelou, but it's like, people will forget what you've said and people will forget what you've done, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You know,
I like that.
That's way true.
Yeah. What do they say? It's like people die twice. It's like when they're in the grave, or when they die, and then like when the last person talks about you.
Oof.
Ever.
Yikes.
So like maybe like, you know, Felix's kids will talk about me once, and then it's like, you know.
Yeah, it's just kind of like
I'm gone.
It's what's your story? You know, what story do you want to leave behind? You know, because like, you know, like my dad's story will live on through us.
Right.
And then I'll pass that on to my kids. And, you know, it's like, what story are you telling? You know, are you proud of the story you are? Like, do you not care? And some people, I guess, like just really don't care, but
Yeah.
you know, I do care. You know, I care about my time on this earth and what I'm doing and how I'm affecting people.
Yeah. Leaving it better than when you came.
Yeah. We're at least trying.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing and doing the podcast.
Yeah, dude.
I know it's kind of, I don't know. Everybody does podcasts these days, but I really appreciate it though. Seriously.
What's the name of your podcast?
I don't know. I don't know yet.
Awesome.
What do you think?
I don't know. Casual Convos with Jake.
I don't know. I'll think of something.
Fireside chat with Jake.
No, my realtor friend Brady already does a fireside chat. He has a podcast. Cool. Well, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
All right.